Welcome to the Pulse USA, where we provide insight, knowledge, and education on local businesses across the U.S.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Pulse USA podcast. Today, we have a special guest, an exciting guest, Ryan Zollner from Highlands in Parsippany, New Jersey, a company that helps homeowners deal with extreme property conditions that they don't know how to handle or want to handle themselves. Ryan, why don't you give us a high-level overview of exactly what Highlands does?
Of course, Bruce. First, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here, enjoying being part of the Pulse family here. Our company, in its simplest terms, Bio1 helps homeowners deal with situations, as you said, that are beyond normal cleaning. That includes severe odors, it could include hoarding situations, it could include contaminations from rodents, and quite frankly, in a most general sense, heavy filth. And that could mean a lot of different things. When a home feels unsafe, unhealthy, or overwhelming to deal with alone, we often step in, we bring it back to a clean, livable space. Most people call us after they've tried cleaning it themselves or fixing it themselves and nothing really works. And that could be in any of the categories we just talked about. That's usually because the problem isn't on the surface anymore. You need somebody to come in there and find that source, and we are those people.
So a lot of homeowners deal with lingering odors. Okay, what are the most common causes that you see today?
You know, most long-term odors don't come from what you can see. It's actually what you can't see. They usually come from rodent activity. It often comes from moisture. It comes from contamination that's gotten into the insulation, possibly into the subfloors, into the drywall, the wall cavities, maybe even your HVAC system, your air handlers. Unfortunately, candles and sprays and cleaners don't really solve those problems. That's usually where people go for that stuff. They just mask the odors. And then, an hour later, a day later, you smell it again. If the source is still there, and that's the key word on odors, really, is the source. If the source is still there, the smell always comes back. Professional odor removal, which is what we do, works at the molecular level. We use an enzymatic treatment that digests the organic material that created the odor. And then after that, we also use oxidizers specialized for the type of odor that it is, that will neutralize that odor and the molecules in the air. Now, depending on the odor, it might be one enzyme, it might be one oxidizer, it might be a mixture of both. It depends on the situation that we're dealing with. We also use the oxidizers to help with any sort of porous material, especially walled materials, ceiling materials, things like that. One method usually doesn't work. It requires many. And if you oxidize without treating the source, the odor will return, and it will return every time. If you only use enzymes without addressing the structure or the air, you don't fully solve the problem. The key is matching and sometimes combining those tools, which is what we do. From a real estate standpoint, which is what we've been talking about here, odor is one of the fastest deal killers in the real estate world. Buyers may walk into a property and they may not say anything. But once they notice an odor, and it could be any odor, they're emotionally done with that house. And then you have a seller who is dealing, they may not know what it is, where it's coming from. It could be a scent of cooking. It could be from pets. It could be from any number of different things. Call us, bring us in, let us find that source for you, and then we can talk about an executable plan to get it taken care of.
So when should someone be concerned that an odor means something bigger?
If they can't deal with it using everyday products. If they're using their everyday masking products and it simply isn't working, or the odor just doesn't dissipate with fresh air, then that would be a time to give us a call. We can come in there free of charge and help you identify. Trust me, I've smelled it all, Bruce. We can help you identify what the odor is and hopefully where it's coming from. And I will tell you, there is no special mechanical nose out there on Amazon that you can buy that'll sniff it out. You are built with one. It's right here, and there's a whole bunch of biological reasons why, but a trained individual like me or someone from my company can come in there and help you identify it, and then give you a little bit of peace of mind knowing what it is, and then you can work toward a plan.
Excellent. So that said, if I knew somebody that was selling a home that had pets or cats specifically, because, cat urine leaves a lingering effect, is that something that you can handle for the homeowner so they can get their house ready for sale?
Absolutely. In fact, cats is one of the number one odor issues that we deal with. And cat odors actually are interesting because The chemical makeup of cat urine changes within hours of the cat actually marking their spot. And there are very specialized enzymes that can work. There's usually a process which, first of all, removes all of the porous material. Second of all, we will treat all of the layers, and it depends on how many layers we have: flooring, subflooring, it could be support structures, depending on the length of time. There's also encapsulation methods, which, for in layman's terms, is a specialty kind of paint that will lock those odors into the structure if they can't be remediated in any other way. But cat odors are most common. That's the thing that buyers walk in, and man, if they smell it, they just walk right away.
So you just brought up a good point because I recently went over a friend's house in the heat of the summer, this past summer, where he bought a home, and this was down in Florida. It was in his garage. The heat actually baked the odor of urine. I guess the people, during the pandemic or whatever, let their animals stay in the garage.
Oh,
And the
goodness.
garage is a concrete floor. So they must have gone to the bathroom on the garage floor. It's all clean, it's spotless. And they even painted over the garage floor, but the odors still arise off of the garage floor.
Yeah, concrete is an interesting beast. Concrete, as you may or not know, is porous. It's very hard, but it is porous, and everything that you put on it will absorb into it, and especially over time. The one thing, or the two things that will bring odor right to the forefront, and you just mentioned the Bruce, are heat and moisture. And you're talking Florida, so you got heat and moisture. So you take that cat urine, you put it basically into a sponge, which is what concrete is, and then you add heat and moisture to it in the air, you're going to bring those odors right up. There are specialty treatments that you can do, short of jackhammering your garage floor, to get deep down. And there are very specialty oxidizers that we use to get in there. And this is some very strong, very nasty stuff that we work with to get this taken care of. But yeah, concrete can be one of those tricky beasts, and it's tough to get rid of. And boy, cat urine is not your friend in those cases. And I will say this, cats are also tricky because if they still live in the house after you've remediated, and this is for homeowners who are still there, cats, no matter what you do, they will find it again.
I
The
got you.
cats
Yep.
themselves.
Yep.
But if you're in a house after the cat's gone and you're trying to remediate a property, we can help you with that.
Excellent. One of the other services you provide is to help people with hoarding or messes in their home. What's the difference between hoarding and just a mess or clutter in the house?
It's a great question, Bruce. Clutter is quite frankly just too much stuff. I'm looking at my desk. This is cluttered. I have too much stuff on it. Hoarding is when the volume of the items that you're dealing with, it starts to affect the safety of the actual space, meaning that the hoarding could be so high it could fall on you, could suffocate, could create physical harm. It could create access issues, meaning it's blocking doors that would make the individual unable to get in and out of the house safely, or first responders to get in and out of the house safely. They're carrying equipment, possibly gurneys, into these spaces. And we've seen situations where there might only be 12 inches or less of a walkway into the home toward the patient that they're trying to help. And that creates a major, major issue. And we do get a lot of referrals from first responders in these cases, because those do get reported in those cases. And the goal for us here today would be to try to connect with any homeowners before it gets there. Let us come in there and take a look at it and just assess the condition of the home. We can tell you if it's clutter or a hoard. There are various different levels of hoard. Not every one is going to be horrible. Some of the real nasty ones can affect the structure of the building, the joists, the walls, the floors, and other ones maybe not. We can help you out. Sometimes it'll just root back down to clutter and odor, maybe not a hoard. And that's what we can help you identify when it becomes a real problem. And again, Bruce, most hoarders, it doesn't start extreme. It always starts very slowly. It starts over time. Hoarding is very often not about the stuff. It's usually in some way psychological. It can be driven by stress. It can be driven by a life change. We've often seen it when a spouse passes and the other spouse is in the home, and they sort of shut off and shut down, and then they just can't manage the property any longer. And quite frankly, most everyone we've dealt with has great intentions. They want to get it taken care of. They didn't do this on purpose. They don't like it, but eventually the house becomes overwhelming. It's too big of a project, and then once we get there, we deal with what we just mentioned. It could be fire hazards, it could be access issues, it could be pests, structural, and then poor air quality. Some of these properties, man, you don't want to breathe this stuff that's going on in there. It's not good for the homeowner. You don't want to leave them there, especially if they're a loved one.
I couldn't agree more, but I want to ask one other question. Everything you talked about is internal. Do you also handle anything external outside the house with regards to hoarding? Because I've driven by some homes where they have stuff piled up outside of their house. I don't even know how they get in the front door.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, depending on the level of the hoard will go out onto the porches. It goes to all the spaces of the property. And it's not unusual to get a call from local governments, local police departments about it, because sometimes with hoards, if they don't have loved ones involved, the only time it gets reported is one, when we talked about heat and humidity and odor. When the odor is strong enough that it goes outside of the building and neighbors start to smell it, that's when we get a call. And two is what you just said, Bruce. It's whenever a homeowner starts to push the boundaries of their property and it goes onto the porch, it goes onto the yard. It could be a matter of vehicles. We've had to have vehicles removed from properties before. When they deal with a hoard, they might have 4 or 5 automobiles that are dysfunctional and they have to be towed and taken to the dump. It's very unfortunate, but yeah, it does happen and we're ready to deal with it.
So, Ryan, I know that you want to help as many people as you can, and there's going to be questions that they have for you. So, how can they get in touch with you for any issues that they may have or questions for that matter? Because I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions.
Absolutely. I am an open book. I'm available all the time to talk with customers, and it's really one of my greatest joys. We are a compassion driven company, and it starts with me. So give me a call. My number is 862-343. That call will go to our answering service, and then will ring directly through to me. So you are welcome to give a call. You can also email us at Highlands at bio1inc, all one word, BIOONEINC.com. That email will go directly to our general manager or myself, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And then also, you are free to visit our website at www.bio1inc.com /Highlands-NJ. And I think, Bruce, you can probably provide a link to that. We do have a form fill on there. So if you want to go and fill out a form, it'll go right to us. And just list your questions. We are happy to come out. And I get asked this all the time. Do you charge to come out and look at our property? No, that's not how we do it. It's not going to cost you $80 for me to get in the car and take a look at your house. A conversation and a visit, that's how we do business. And that is free of charge. And then we make a plan. Numbers don't get exchanged until we know what we're looking at, what we're dealing with, and how we're going to move forward.
That's awesome. Well, Ryan, thank you so much again for coming on the podcast, and the information you provided today is excellent. And I'm sure people are going to take advantage of your offer as well, because I know there's people out there that have issues that they need taken care of. So thank you very much for that.
It is my pleasure, Bruce. And once again, thank you for having me. And thanks for giving me this forum to speak to all of our lovely Morris County residents and the folks that are my neighbors and friends.
And we're going to have you on again for sure, because I'm sure there's a lot of other services that I can have questions for. So don't worry.
We have a few more here and there.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You bet, Bruce. You as well.